All right, we might get going. Thank you so much for joining the Kirby Institute seminar series. My name's Jason Grebley. I'm a professor here at the Kirby Institute. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're meeting, the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation. We're really fortunate that we get to live and work and play on these lands. And just like to pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that may be joining us today. Just some housekeeping to start off. The format for the seminar will start off with a presentation followed by a Q&A session. So if you're joining us online today, you can ask questions by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. And for our audience in the room today, there's a microphone. So please go to the side of the room if you're going to use that and for any questions during the session. And yeah, so formalities finished. Just massive thanks. So our speaker today is Mr. Jeremy Carr. He's the manager of research reporting at the UNSW Library. We were just actually having a chat before our program is implemented. Jeremy presented to us last year on this. And our program's actually already started to implement some of the stuff that Jeremy provided. So some measures of impact already, which is fantastic. So we just thought it would be helpful for him to come back and give us an overview. So as I mentioned, he's the manager for research reporting within the scholarly communications and repository team at UNSW Library. SCR are the business owners of Ross. And the UNSWorks systems, which track publication metadata and making publications openly accessible in UNSW's institutional repository. And as I mentioned, he's delivered lots of different presentations to us. Again, I think this is really, really important stuff. Yeah, it may not sound so sometimes, but with the changes to the NHMRC reporting guidelines, I think we need to be getting this right so that we don't get in trouble down the road for not having our papers open access. I know that I've recently filled out my final report for a grant, and they do ask you for your DOIs of your open access publications. So look, I don't know how this isn't being policed to an extent yet, but it could be as we go forward. So maybe just join me in welcoming Jeremy and looking forward to your talk.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Jeremy Carr. I'm the manager for research reporting, thank you, at UNSW Library. So today I'm going to talk about the ways that you can comply with the NHMRC's open access policy and the way that the UNSW Library can help you with that. So I would also like to acknowledge that UNSW is located on the unceded territory of the Bidjigal and Gadigal people and the Ngunnawal people, who are the traditional owners of the land where UNSW is situated. We pay respects to elders both past and present and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who may be in the audience today. So what I would first like to say is that researchers will remain responsible for determining which publications best suit their work. So we will guide you about how to make your work open access, but by no means is this trying to restrict where you publish. We don't influence or guide researchers about the best places where they should put their work. Researchers and HDR students shouldn't decide to publish solely based on, say, a read and publish agreement or an open access journal. They can decide wherever they want to publish, and there should be an open access option available, and we can help you find that option. And frequently, this option can be made without cost. So first, I will talk about both the NHMRC open access policy and the UNSW open access policy, which overlap. Then I can talk about the open access pathways available to you, both through publishing in an open access journal and through the UNSW institutional repository, UNSWorks. I'll go into a bit more detail about rights retention statements, which Jason alluded to before. This is a way to make sure your work can be open for free by depositing it into UNSW's repository. And I can also take you through a little bit more detail about how to deposit into UNSWorks through ROS. So the current NHMRC open access policy is underpinned by the principle that publicly funded research should be shared openly. So with this in mind, publications that stem from NHMRC research must be made immediately open access to comply, regardless of the publisher's policy. In fact, it is safest to assume that you should make everything resulting from an NHMRC grant open, regardless of when you were awarded the grant. So this policy is in full effect as of December 31, 2024. So keep that in mind. And when they say in the policy peer-reviewed publications supported by the NHMRC, this specifically means that there should not be any embargo period and that it should be published with a Creative Commons CC BY license. A CC BY license is the most open license available. It means that not only can something be shared, it can also be reproduced, remixed, and so on. So it should be as open as possible using that specific license. It applies to both peer-reviewed articles and peer-reviewed conference papers. And the NHMRC does encourage authors to make their monographs and book chapters open access where possible. Books and book chapters are a little bit more complicated than journal articles. So if you have any trouble making that open, please let the library know and we can help guide you around that. You can visit the NHMRC library and they've got these key updates spelled out for you. And obviously feel free to contact us if you need more information about specifically how we can help you comply. So this is just a slide to show you that the UNSW OA policy is in alignment with the NHMRC one. They cover essentially the same kinds of research outputs. The NHMRC policy covers journal articles and conference papers, whereas the UNSW policy also includes research reports. The NHMRC requires that you link a grant to the resulting publication when you publish it, and that's something that can be done in ROS. The UNSW has their own rights retention statement as well, but the NHMRC requires that you use their one when you publish with their research, publish with their grants, I mean. And this is all just to say that if you are complying with the UNSW policy, you are most likely already complying with the NHMRC policy. So it's good practice to have a look at our policy and see what you can be doing to make your research open. And then you won't have to do it twice. It's already open. You're already meeting both policies. And even if an article does comply with the NHMRC policy by virtue of being in an open access journal, it still does need to be deposited into UNSWorks to meet our policy. And the benefit there is that it is just more readily available. When you Google your name, when you Google the name of your article, it will also pop up in UNSWorks and be freely available through that avenue. So how to comply with the NHMRC open access policy? There are two routes that involve the two versions of your journal article. The first route revolves around the version of record. So this is the final version of your journal article that has been typeset and published in the journal. So when you publish in one of these, say an open access journal or a journal that allows you to publish open access, you have sort of two options. So first, if you publish in a specifically open access journal, as in everything they publish is open, it may incur article processing charges, but you will meet the policy. It's available to everyone. The second option is that you can publish in a journal that is covered by our read and publish agreements, and you can choose the open access by CC BY option. So this option shouldn't incur any article processing charges. On the UNSW website, we have a list of publishers that we have agreements with. And I was just talking to Jason about this before. It's worth reading through that list and reading the instructions for them because they do have caps. They're not infinite, and we might reach the cap by the end of a year, and you might not be able to publish under this agreement. It's also limited to certain publishers that the university and the sort of group of universities negotiating those agreements have actually spoken to. So it doesn't apply to everything. It doesn't apply to every journal within those publishers. And it's really worth taking a close look and seeing whether you would be able to publish open access under those agreements. It's also worth mentioning at this point that hybrid journals, according to the NHMRC policy, do not meet their compliance. So they don't consider hybrid journals to be in spirit with open access. So for context, hybrid journals are the ones that require payment for a specific article to be made open. So when you're going through the publishing process, mostly they're closed, but you can pay an extra fee to make it open. They don't consider that to be in the spirit of making research openly available, because you still have to pay money in order to do that for your research. So it's just worth mentioning that if you have published in this way, you would still need to follow the other route, which is to deposit to UNSWorks in order for that research to be compliant under the policy. So the other way that you can comply with the revised policy is with your author-accepted manuscript. The author-accepted manuscript is the version that you submit to the journal after peer review, after it's sort of been edited and cleaned up, but before it's been typeset and put in the journal. So this version, you are able to deposit to a research repository like UNSWorks, provided that you have included a rights retention statement. So you'll need to include this statement when you submit your article to the publisher. It usually goes in the acknowledgement section, and it ensures that you've made your licensing arrangements clear before you sign a publishing agreement. So the publisher knows your intent to put this into an institutional repository and make it open. It also means that you will have no embargo limiting its immediate release. So as soon as you publish it, it can go into UNSWorks and be immediately available. This pathway also does not incur APCs. It's completely free to do this. So UNSWorks. If you're not aware, UNSWorks is our institutional repository. It is the one home for all UNSW research outputs. Through the UNSWorks platform, it's where PhD students submit their theses, so that they have submitted their research ahead of their graduation. It's also where you can deposit data sets. And for publications and non-traditional outputs, they are deposited via ROS. But they end up in UNSWorks where they're available to read. The benefit of depositing to UNSWorks, other than meeting your compliance with your funder, is there is boosted visibility of your work. When you Google it, it will show up in Google. It's absorbed into Google Scholar. It's absorbed into Trove. You'll get greater visibility and what we call citation diversity, which is that people from different backgrounds who may not have been able to find it in a journal will be able to find it, read it, and cite it. There's greater connectivity between outputs. So in ROS, you can connect your ORCID ID, and then when you deposit the output, the file, your ORCID ID will all be linked, and the grant number if you've connected your grant as well. If you are choosing the repository-based open access route with your author-accepted manuscript, you must use the NHMRC's rights retention statement. So this statement is, as you can see on the slide, this research was funded in whole or part by the National Health and Medical Research Council, and then you include the grant number. For the purposes of open access, the author has applied a CC BY public copyright license to any author-accepted manuscript version arising from this submission. Like I said before, the best practice is to add this to your acknowledgement section during the initial submission. And then when the publisher accepts this, it means they have agreed to this statement. And that's prior to any publishing agreement. So no matter what you sign afterwards, they've already agreed to this and you have permission to deposit it. The power of the statement comes before the publishing agreement. So it means they can't request an embargo or any other restriction on the author-accepted manuscript because they've already got the open license there. And the open license trumps whatever they've put in afterwards. So if they do request any such restrictions, that should be completely refused. I'll add that we have never had a publication get rejected on the basis of including this statement. We've never had a publisher try to remove it. Publishers these days understand that researchers have obligations to their funder and obligations to their institution. So they know that this option is available and will allow you to do it. They just won't tell you about it. So if you do encounter issues using this statement, that is something we would very much want to know. And that's, oh, really? Okay, we'll talk to you later. And it's also probably good for the NHMRC to know because they are very emphatic that this needs to be used and this trumps whatever publisher policy there is. So here's just a quick checklist. The first thing to say is that researchers negotiate their own agreements with publishers. So we can't, the library, that is, we can't go in and help you negotiate. That's something that researchers have to do on their own. But if you use the NHMRC rights retention statement or the UNSW one, if it's for non-NHMRC related research, include that in the acknowledgement section at submission. Read any copyright transfer agreement to make sure they're not trying to restrict it in any way. Make sure to retain a copy of your AAM. And this is very important because sometimes people forget to save a copy of it, or they lose the copy, or, you know, maybe if you're not the contacting author, you don't ask for a copy from them and therefore it's sort of lost. It's important to keep it so you're able to deposit it afterwards. And then you deposit the file to UNSWorks via ROS, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. It is fairly simple to get to here. So you log into ROS, you've got your publications module on the home page, and you just click on your list of publications, find the one you want to deposit and click on it. You scroll down about halfway down the page, and there is this repository section, and they've got a big deposit button. So from here, you have to fill out the deposit form. So first of all, you pick the file you want to deposit and identify which version it is, either the published version or the accepted manuscript. It is important that you deposit the correct version because otherwise we might have to do a takedown procedure if it's not complying, or if it's, you know, maybe the published version that you don't have permission to deposit. If you're not sure about it, you can let us know and say, I'm not sure which version I'm allowed to publish, and we can help guide you through that. I will say we do have a team that reviews most deposits that come through. So it's unlikely that something unauthorized will appear in UNSWorks, or that we will have to do a takedown. But it's best practice to make sure you've got the right version in the first place, so that our team doesn't have to go through every single submission and verify that it's allowed. So after picking the version and the file, you pick the reuse license. In the form, it will pick CC by default. As I said before, this is the license that is required by the NHMRC policy. So if you followed the previous steps, this is the correct license to choose. There might be other situations where if you haven't done rights retention or something like that, you might have to pick another license that the publisher asks you to. Following this, you are given the option to add an embargo. And again, if you follow the previous steps, you shouldn't need to put an embargo in. And then if you are depositing retrospectively, so you've already got something in the journal, you hadn't used the rights retention statement, and therefore you can't put the AAM in, you might be able to put it into UNSWorks with an embargo. While it's under embargo, it doesn't meet the NHMRC policy and you're not compliant. But then when the embargo lifts, it's open access. So you will eventually make it open. Finally, you pick the deposit license. So you're given two options. Either the author owns the copyright or has the necessary permissions to deposit, or I'm not sure who owns the copyright. So again, if you're depositing your own work, you have the necessary permission to deposit. If you're not sure about it and you pick the other option, that just means it goes through the review queue, and our UNSWorks team will have a chat with you about whether you're allowed to deposit it or not. So then you click the deposit button, and then depending on the publisher and a few other details, it will either be made open access immediately on the website, or it will have to go through a short review process. The reason we do this is because some publishers might require a statement to be added before it can be put up publicly, or there might be something that is flagged with our team, such as, you know, the license being I'm not sure. So to sort of go back and review whether you have successfully deposited to UNSWorks, I've put these couple of slides in because we received a question a couple of months ago where someone was submitting their final report for an NHMRC grant, and they said that for each publication, they were asked two questions on the form, which is, firstly, have you deposited the metadata of this publication to an institutional repository? And two, is the article now freely available? So I've added these two slides to show you how you can verify whether you've met those two requirements. So the first is the metadata available in an institutional repository or UNSWorks? So again, if you're on this same page in ROS, looking at your publication record, if you see the file name and it says whatever version you deposited, if it says live, and you're able to actually click on it and view it and open it up in UNSWorks, then yes, the metadata is available. It's been sent from ROS to UNSWorks, and it's all available there publicly. If it says there are no files in the repository, but there is a metadata only record, that means that you either haven't submitted a file yet, or the file hasn't been approved, but there still is a UNSWorks record of it. So just the metadata is available. And so if it says this and it says live, then yes, the metadata is available for this one. Whereas if it says the publication does not exist in the UNSWorks repository, that means that the deposit process hasn't begun yet. So you're not meeting the requirement. The second one is this article now freely available via an open access repository? So this is, if you've got the file there and it says live, then yes. If it says anything else, then you have not met this requirement and it does not meet that compliance. It doesn't meet compliance. So just to sum up, the UNSW and NHMRC OA policies both support the open sharing of publicly funded research. They overlap a lot. It's best practice to make sure everything you produce while working at UNSW is made open. You can comply with the UNSW and NHMRC policies for free by depositing to UNSWorks using that author-accepted manuscript rights retention pathway. So you don't always have to worry about picking a journal that is either under agreement or is open access natively. And please make sure to retain your rights by including a rights retention statement in your manuscript as you submit it, which it sounds like you guys are starting to do, which is fantastic. We do have some resources here. So if you access the UNSW library website, we do have a subject guide on open access. This includes information about rights retention, what statements to use, where to put it. Also have a link there to UNSWorks and ROS, which I'm sure you've all accessed before. For other rights retention resources, we've got our statement, we've got the NHMRC policy. I've got a couple of links there to Plan S, and this is a group that has sort of advocated for rights retention. This is sort of where the promotion of this comes from. So they've got a lot of good advice about what to do if the publisher disagrees, or templates and things that you can use. There's also this journal checker tool, which is a pretty interesting tool where you can enter your university, you can enter the name of a journal, and it can tell you what your open access pathways are, including if it's already under an agreement. I'm not going to open it up now because when I last checked it, it was down. So it does exist, but maybe give it a week. So for context, if you have any discipline-specific queries, the best place to start is contacting your outreach librarian. There's an outreach librarian for every faculty, so you may already know your medicine ones. You can contact the UNSWorks inbox for any questions around open access, depositing, and so on. You can contact the ROS inbox, which is directly to me, if you have any troubleshooting issues with ROS itself, if you have any questions about your publication's metadata, and I can help you fix that up. And we do also have a copyright officer. So if you have some really tricky questions about, if you're worried about violating copyright, if you have any third-party copyright materials in your work, they are the best person to contact, and they can advise around your rights and what you're supposed to do around third-party copyright. And you can also email me directly, jeremycarr@unsw.edu.au. What I can do is I can provide reports around open access compliance. So if you're not sure which of your outputs should be made open, or which ones already are, or the split between which ones are compliant and non-compliant, feel free to contact me and I can give you a little report on that. Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy. So just while people are thinking about their questions, please raise your hand. Do we have anything online? I don't know. I can't see, but yeah, sure. Can we? Yeah. Okay. So if there's any questions there. But just while people are thinking of their questions, and Tanya, maybe think about your journey. I want to hear from you, or if it was you or Meeling, I wasn't sure who. Oh, great. I love it. So I'd love to hear about that. One thing, as I mentioned, what we did last time is from Jeremy's, and again, just massive thanks, Jeremy. I think people, there's somebody behind the wall doing this sort of stuff, and it's so great to be able to meet you and see you, and you give such a clear presentation on what's required. It's just very practical. So really, really helpful. So thank you for coming back a second time. And yeah, so what we did off the back of Jeremy's presentation last year is what we were finding is that students and postdocs, it's not like sometimes they just don't know this stuff. We've created a checklist that the senior author has to sign off on for every student submitting a paper of if it's a project that's related to a project coordinator, it has to go to the project coordinator. They have to check the funding statements in the contract to make sure that any statements for the funder is included. They also have to now include the rights retention statement before it gets submitted. So we're happy to share this with anybody if that's useful. I'd love Jeremy to review and actually massive thanks. I don't know if he's here, but David Silk, maybe online, but massive thanks to him and the team for pulling it together. But I'd love you to review ours to just make sure that it's covering everything we need to. The one thing we're probably not doing is the depositing. I don't think there's a trigger that if we're not compliant to deposit into UNSWorks, so we could probably improve on that bit.
Okay.
So we'll get you to review it. Is that that's
Yeah,
okay?
I'll do.
Okay. And if anyone needs it, please reach out. We'd be very happy to share it. But I was just curious, sorry, not to dob people in, but I am curious to sort of know, raise your hands. Do you currently put the rights retention statement into your papers as standard? No. So I didn't either. So don't feel like honestly. And the problem also sometimes is that the more senior academics, like, when was the last time that we were actually the ones to put the paper? But it's often the PhD students and postdocs. I think it's good for them to know. But I think we weren't trying to be militant. We're very happy for our students to be corresponding author, but it's just stuff that they don't think about. Like I want to review all of the proofs because it's just stuff they don't think of, and that's the stuff I check. Is the funding there? Is the right acknowledgements happening? So anyway, so we can share that with people. Okay. Questions? What's that one? Mei-Ling, put your hand up and go to the mic. I can't read that.
No, that's just in.
Oh, general. Okay, forget it. Okay,
Q&A is open.
go. Okay, Q&A is open.
So Jeremy, thank you so much. After last year's talk, I decided I better put that in. But we got the comments back from our reviewers, and the editor actually, there were other editorial things, but they actually asked us to remove that statement.
Wow.
But we're still in the process of responding to the reviewers' comments.
Okay.
So this might be a good point in time to say, what do I do?
That's
That is
weird that
really
the
good.
editor
Yeah.
would do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it what is who's the
So
publisher?
Actually, it's the ASI journal. So it's one of our society journals, which
Which is weird.
which is very weird too. That's right, because we as members, we can publish freely in there, and I think it is open access. So I'm looking at Tony yeah.
But I would push back and say this is what we've been advised to do by our university, and I'd love to hear what happens. And I'm sure Jeremy would.
They might be objecting to it on the basis that it's already going to be open access, so it's just sort of redundant to them. So I don't know if there'd be that much of an issue. So presumably, if it's an OA journal, you've already paid like a fee to publish in there, right? No?
No.
Okay, so it is just
because
really
it's a society. It's a Society of Immunology journal. It's free for members to publish.
Oh, but that's. But is the resulting paper going to be open access for
Yes.
anyone to use?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then maybe it's redundant. Like
yeah, the only thing I can imagine is that it's redundant. And when that is published in the journal, you'll be able to put the fully published version into UNSWorks.
Yeah.
So that might be it, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's weird just to remove it on the basis of that because it's not doing any harm. And
Yeah.
No,
mentioning
exactly. It
you're
seems
mentioning the grant number as well, which is
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
I'll reply and say it's a requirement. Please still publish my.
Yeah, maybe send it to Jeremy just so he can.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Curtis.
thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I have a long list of questions, but I'm only going to pick one.
Okay.
Do you know just off the top of your head if there are any publishers that are known to have tripped people up? So I remember I published in a Walter Kahlua journal, and they have the embargo for 12 months.
Yeah.
It wasn't NHMRC funded, so that wasn't really a problem.
Okay.
But I just had to wait like a year before I deposited it into ROS. But do you know of any other publishers that people have to look out for?
Not in medicine, luckily. There has been very recently, I think IEEE, which is an engineering publisher, they have introduced a fee for people trying to do a rights retention pathway in their journals where they say, oh, okay, if you're picking this pathway, that's fine, you can do that, but you have to pay an additional fee, which is definitely not in the spirit of it. And it's something that, you know, universities and libraries are trying to push against. It's probably worth keeping in mind that some journals might try to do this in future, but like I was saying before, they understand that, you know, you've got obligations to your funder, and it is for the benefit of research in general to make things open. So I would hope that most journals wouldn't go that route. The most you'll probably come up against is journals not mentioning that you've got this option available to you and having to get that information through us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Virginia.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy. My question relates to the read and publish agreement.
Yeah.
So who's deciding who has an agreement with what journal, and how is it being decided? And can we lobby in any way to get journals?
Yes, you can. So most of these agreements are negotiated as part of CAUL, which is the Council of Australian University Librarians. So as a group, which I think includes most of the GO8, they decide which journals are the most, or which publishers to negotiate with, agree on a list of journals and so on, and the, you know, cap of that agreement. So that's where the bulk of them are coming from. I think UNSW does negotiate some agreements with individual publishers, and this is on the basis of you know, it being cost effective. So there is a sort of budgetary limitation that we have. But this is all negotiated by our collections development unit, and you can contact them and lobby for particular journals. I think there is, in the collection updates site, a form that you can fill out. But I wouldn't be surprised if the answer is usually going to be, no, we can't pursue this because it's not cost effective. We don't have a lot of library money.
This
was one, and it was, they did make an agreement last year.
Oh, fantastic. So yeah, it's worth doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, I mean, just in the medical faculty, if you just took the Lancet collection, I mean, how much are we all paying? I mean, you know, through grants or through other means. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. And I guess each faculty will have their own target journals, but, you know, some of these are 3,000-4,000.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah.
But, and Andrew sort of says here, so what about Elsevier journals? Doesn't this destroy their business model? And yeah, well, yes and no.
I would argue it's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Like we want journals to be open. The fact that there is a business model is detrimental to research in a way.
Well, I think this is a massive problem. And Virginia, picking up on your point, you know, I'm co-editor in chief of International Journal of Drug Policy. So we've been having these discussions, and it's been fascinating because we're part of the International Society for Addiction Journal Editors. So there's a thread that's been going on around this discussion. And I calculated if your group publishes 30 papers a year, and if it's 5,000 US on average, I think it's actually 4,500 is the benchmark average APC for medicine. You know, that's and that's US, $150,000 US a year. That's like several postdocs. So this model is not financially sustainable. Now, I guess what I was going to ask you is what discussions, sorry, this is now getting very high level, but what discussions are happening at the university? And is there a group that is discussing this, or a committee at the university level? Because it's really concerning. What's happened is that obviously this has been funded. The libraries over time have been funded from the university to buy these subscriptions and to pay for these. And what's happening is now it's shifting to be put on to the researchers. That's fine. NHMRC's at least allowed a relaxing of the restrictions. You can't pre-budget because you don't know in advance what publications you're going to have, but at least after the fact, you can repurpose budget to allow that to happen. But what's going to happen? Like once these transformative arrangements are finished, they are meant to transform, like you and I discussed before.
Yeah.
So how is this going to work? And is there like a group within the university that's talking about this, and what is the fate?
Yeah.
Or is it just going to like, nah, hopefully that nobody kind of complains and the library will be defunded and this will just slide off? I'm partly being
Yeah.
but it's a massive problem. And
Yeah.
I don't know if people are discussing it enough.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is like very high level, definitely above my pay grade. It's the kind of thing that our university librarian will be talking to the rest of the Council of Australian University Libraries about. It's a big sector-wide question about what will happen. For the moment, the transformative agreements are still being negotiated. We're still, we've still got them up until I think the end of 2026 at least, and they'll still be negotiated as long as it's not, completely financially unviable to do so. But yeah, it's a big question about what's going to happen next. What we won't do is we're not going to let like researchers take the entire brunt of the cost. There will be ways around this to make sure that it's still affordable. I don't know if it'll be us being able to do anything about that, but I don't think that's what that won't be the consequence.
Yeah, and Andrew's written, I understand that. So should we not submit to Lancet, or what approach to publication, to Lancet do you propose? I think it's a really difficult question.
Yeah.
You pay, if anybody wants to have a good laugh, there's a great comedian. He's an ophthalmologist, Dr. Glaucom Falcon. And he does a couple of hilarious skits on nature and publishing and peer review. So if anybody wants to have a bit of a laugh for 2 minutes, very, very funny. But that's what they, you're paying $10,000 off the free labor. Anyways, it's a big problem. Sorry, I'm a bit passionate about it because it really frustrates me. Tony.
No, it's a huge problem, and don't start me, but a much simpler, well, not a simpler question, but where does the responsibility lie? So if someone's on a multi-author paper and neither the senior authors or the first author or the corresponding author is from UNSW, which is entirely possible, where does the responsibility lie? So are the UNSW authors on that paper still responsible to be making sure that that's open access or not?
Yeah, would be where the UNSW policy comes in. So the UNSW OA policy requires all UNSW staff to make their work open access, even if it's open access elsewhere. So if you're on a multi-authored paper and the corresponding author is from UTS, they might put it in their own repository, and then you are meeting the NHMRC compliance. And you could just leave it there because you've met your funder requirements, but then to continue and meet the institution requirements, you as the UNSW author or one of the UNSW authors would also need to deposit it. And it's not making it sort of there to be duplicates or redundant, it's making it more open. So you've got more places where people can discover it. So I hope that answers your question. It's sort of, whoever, the corresponding author can put it in their repository, and then any other author can put it in their repository as well. And it's best practice to do both of that.
Just go back to Andrew's point. I think it's a really important consideration. We've had this just recently come up. We submitted something to Lancet. It got reviewed, got rejected, and they offered up eClinical Medicine, which is a Lancet series journal, $6,000 US. 6,000. That's, depending on when you check the exchange rate, close to 10,000 Australian dollars. And actually, there was two papers because there was a accompanying paper. That's $20,000 for two papers. So then the decision was, forget it. We're going to pick a transformative journal that UNSW supports that is essentially free through the university instead of going there. And I think these are the decisions that we'll need to be making as academics. But yeah. Jesus.
I'll also say, sorry, just before your question, with something like the Lancet, where you're in that kind of rock and a hard place where really want to publish here, but they're not going to allow any open options. If you look at the NHMRC's, Q&A about it, they would simply say, pick another journal. So even they're saying that. So sometimes it's not a viable option. Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation.
And then don't get your investigator grant. Right?
That's actually my question.
Yes. Or your nature stipend for incentivizing for publishing.
I do have a question about investigator grants though. So this is about what counts as NHMRC funded research. If you've got an investigator grant, everything you do is essentially then funded by the NHMRC. Does that mean this policy then applies to every single thing that we work on?
Primarily publications, but yes.
But even even if it's on a different topic that you didn't write about in your investigator grant proposal.
Oh no, I think it's I would interpret it as related to the related to the topic of the grant.
The work of the grant. Look, it's tricky, Ben. I think you
That's
got
very fuzzy.
yeah. Look,
A lot of us would put in things
I
like,
know.
I work on prevention. Anything and everything that I do is about prevention. So
Look,
Well, in that case, I would say to again follow the UNSW policy, everything needs to be made open anyway. So that's best practice to do, regardless of whether it's related to the NHMRC grant or not.
it's a tricky. Well, that's why it's great to have this conversation. Well, it's like an outlet for our venting, maybe. We can all complain to each other. No, but I do think we need to fix some of this stuff. I don't know what it takes. And Tony, maybe these are discussions. It's great you're here. That it would be good to be having discussions with the faculty and the library. Not that you don't have enough to deal with, but I think they're important. And how do we get engaged in the discussion about it, I think, and decision making around this? What I'm really concerned about is with all the cost cutting that's happening at the university, that it just says, nah, all right, we're investing X number of millions of dollars to the university for these transformative agreements, and it's done. That's it. Researchers, you just sort it out and figure it out. And I think that's probably the likely scenario, to be honest. But then, yeah, I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts or want to bring up any other questions? Yeah, go for it. We're early and
So with the rights retention statement and the acknowledgements, my understanding that if we wanted to go the green route with previous publications, that we own the copyright to the author, the accepted author manuscript, or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that mean that but we don't need the rights retention statement in the acknowledgements to upload it through the green route? Is that correct?
So yeah, if you've published in an OA journal already, like it's green, it's already open, you don't need the rights retention statement. You already have, like you say, you already have the permission to deposit that. So you don't need the statement for that. The statement is for situations where the journal would otherwise be closed, and you get to keep specifically the author accepted manuscript and deposit that. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I may have misunderstood my own retention statement because I was given the advice that, like, yeah, as long as you've, like, even if the article is closed because you've written it, like the publisher owns the like formatting and the branding of it. But if you just have your like Word document and put into like either a UNSWorks or a MedRx archive or whatever,
Yeah.
that would still be fine. That wouldn't conflict necessarily with either the journal or with anything else, and that's still considered open access.
But maybe my question follows on from that. So is just, I guess, a procedural thing. Is the proper procedure at this stage is to say, okay, you're at revision 2, that's the one that gets accepted. Do you take your Word document from that submission, create the PDF from that R2, no track changes submission, and that's the version you upload? Or what is yeah,
this is one of those things where, us being on the sort of library side and not like the researcher side, we don't know much about the submission process. So do they send you back a copy?
No.
So then I would keep the version that you submit.
Okay, and it should be a clean version without all the responses to the reviewer comments and stuff. So you're not just attaching that PDF with all the bits and pieces you submitted. It's literally the paper, the Word document in PDF of that final text that went in.
Yeah, that's
okay. So that's important. So if anybody, okay.
And
no, it's good. It's all right.
some of the journals, they will edit your words after you've submitted that version.
I don't think you can do anything about
So
that.
Lancet will do that. Can you just still submit upload the one that you submitted?
Yes.
Even if they've made editorial changes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Any other questions, Mei-Ling? Yeah, go for it. I love it. I love the dynamic, the dynamic nature of a session on open access.
Keep going.
With my PGC hat on, and I probably should know this, but I don't. Sometimes students include the PDF of their paper in their thesis.
Right.
Which is not how the university necessarily wants them to do it, but I've seen it. Does that cause issues then, with copyright and...
I would say so.
Yeah.
You probably, so when they're submitting their thesis specifically to UNSWorks for graduation purposes, I feel like if they did do that, we have our team who reviews all theses for things like that. Like they look and see if there's any copyright considerations to be done. They would pick that up and tell them to remove it probably. Or
they could also get, or they could possibly get like the permission and the license to do that. Because I know we've done that in the past to take parts of something published and included.
But we should discourage students from doing that, in addition to the fact of it just being a pain in the ass for them to have to like edit when the reviewers' comments come back. It's so dumb because it's kind of then you can't edit those PDFs that get included. So I think we should discourage students from submitting it as like the PDF of the papers, just for that purpose. You just copy and paste the text in, it's fine, right? Yeah.
So for the people online, Andre was saying that the KIPS committee, so the postgraduate student committee, will have a seminar, and I'm going to be speaking at that, so I'll just try to include it in my talk. And just to remind, I just submitted my thesis recently, so at top of my mind, I had 5 articles. 3 of them were open access. 1 of them was closed access with an embargo, and then 1 was, like a submitted but not accepted yet. So I got the advice that the open access ones were fine to include as a PDF, and I reached out to the publisher of the one that was closed, and they said, no, you can't. You can include it, but here's the exact text you've got to use, and you can only do the author accepted manuscript. So in my thesis, I had to write this is the author accepted manuscript version. You can find it published online. Here's the link. There's a process with some. It'll be publisher dependent though, but there is some that you can do.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Curtis. All right. Just conscious people might have meetings to get to on the hour. Just massive. If we just thank Jeremy for his time.
Thank you.
Again, sometimes a thankless task, but we really appreciate all your efforts. So thanks a lot.
Happy to do it. Very good questions. Thank you, everyone.